Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 399. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Happy Monday. And we're going to pick up where we left off in the last podcast. Well, not exactly pick up where we left off in the last podcast, because we left off in the book of Hebrews in the Bible, and we will get back into the book of Hebrews in this podcast, but I'm not going to begin with that. There's something else that I want to do in this podcast, and it's going to lead us back into the book of Hebrews, but this is something that I really need to address today. So we'll see how much of time we have left after I get through this. We may not get through as much of the book of Hebrews as I want to, but we'll pick it back up again on Friday. But I want to start today's podcast defining a few words. They all come from medieval period. They all have Latin roots. We're going to look at the etymology of each of them, starting with the word sacred. The word sacred originates from the Latin secure, meaning holy, consecrated. This goes back to what we were talking about in the last podcast about God being holy, consecrated, set apart, pure. It was the analogy that I was trying to use to make you understand what the word holy means in the last podcast, that pure, that this is what God is. So the word sacred deals with holiness, something that is consecrated, something that is pure. It traces back to the Proto-Indo-European root sac, meaning to sanctify. Origins and historical development. The word sacred first appeared in the late 14th century, meaning hallowed, consecrated, made holy through association with divine religious ceremony, derived from the Middle English past participle sacred of now obsolete verb securin, meaning to make holy. So that's what sacred means. It means holy. It means consecrated. It means pure. It means set apart. The word pure is not in there, but that's the synonym that I was using in the last podcast. Okay, so that's sacred. And now we're going to look at the word profane. The word profane, also Latin roots, originates from the late Latin profanitas, meaning profaneness, which itself comes from the Latin profanus, meaning not sacred, not holy. So profane is the opposite of sacred. Profane means not sacred, not holy. The Latin roots break down into before, fanum, temple, before the temple. That's what it means. Profane means before the temple, which means that it's out of the temple, which means that it's not sacred, it's not holy, indicates something that is outside of the temple or dedicated or not dedicated to religious purposes. So anything could really be profane. Profane doesn't really have a nefarious meaning. I mean, anything can be profane. Profane just means something that's not sacred, something that's outside of the temple. The etymology reflects the word's historical content being based on secular, non-religious matter. So anything that is secular, anything that is non-religious is profane, meaning not sacred. All right. We got one more here. Sacrilegious. Also Latin roots. Sacrilegious derives from the Latin roots meaning to steal sacred things, combining sacred and legere, meaning light, or meaning, what's another word that you can use that there's a word that's that I'm thinking of, but I can't think of it. But it means that it's just mundane, or that it's not sacred. Basically, sacrilege derives from the Latin root meaning to steal sacred things. So this is more nefarious. This is the act of, this is not like profane. Sacrilegious means that you're stealing sacred things, that you're combining the sacred with the mundane, with the legere, with the light, to steal. The objective sacrilegious, or the adjective sacrilegious, originates from the Latin word sacrilegiosum, which comes from the sacrilegium, meaning temple robbery. This just doesn't mean, so the profane means outside of the temple, secular, that it's something that's not sacred, but sacrilegious means temple robbery, that you're stealing from the temple, that you're stealing the sacred things. The Latin sacrilegious refers to temple robbery, or one who steals sacred objects, formed from the phrase sacrum legere, meaning literally to steal sacred things. So that's what sacrilegious means. It means that you're stealing what is sacred. So the profane means that it's just something that is not sacred. Anything that is secular, anything that is not religious is profane. It's kind of it doesn't have a active nefarious. There's nothing really bad about the profane. It just means that it's not sacred. But the sacrilegious means there's something bad. There's something nefarious and sacrilegious because you're stealing that which is sacred. And that's what a lot of people, this is what, people, this was in the Winter Olympics, I guess a few years ago, and the opening ceremonies. And a lot of people were saying that they were imitating the Last Supper, and they were mocking the Last Supper. And they said, no, this was some Greek god. But a lot of people took this as being sacrilegious, that you're stealing from the sacred to put on your event there at the opening ceremonies. Sacrilegious. If you don't remember the controversy a few years ago that the Dodgers, the LA Dodgers, were having an event honoring the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And this was this homosexual group that they would do things like this. Is actually one of their events, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Is this profane or is this sacrilegious? It's definitely sacrilegious. So they don't do this stuff. You will never see anything like this happening to Islam, any of this sacrilegious stuff, or Judaism, to be quite frankly. And if you had, gay guys doing stuff like this that was sacrilegious to Islam, you're going to be getting some Allah Akbar. And people know that. People know that they're going to get some Allah Akbar, so they don't want any Allah Akbar, so they'll never do this to Islam, and they'll never do it to Judaism either. If these guys, did something sacrilegious like this to Jews and offended Jews, you would end up having to go to meet with some rabbis and explain yourself. So this only happens to Christianity. This sacrilegious stuff only happens to Christianity. I think that's very interesting, but it's not anything new. I mean, Christians, from the beginning, that's the entire reason that the Romans, when they put the crown of thorns on Jesus's head, it was to mock him. From the very beginning, Christians have been mocked. They wanted to mock Jesus because he claimed to be a king. And they said, if you're a king, then you wear this crown of thorns. It was to mock him. And from Jesus himself being mocked all the way through 2,000 years of Christian histories, the mocking of Christianity, the sacrilegious, is something that we just have to deal with. And Christians have tough skin. We've been dealing with. It's no big deal to us. You're gonna have to deal with God. There are more pictures of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and the Dodgers franchise, the LA Dodgers franchise, were inviting these people to Dodger Stadium to celebrate them. And there was a big controversy. This is sacrilegious. It's not just profane, it's sacrilegious. So you remember this one. This was the current governor of what state is she the governor of? Michigan. Gretchen Whitmer, current governor of the great state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, participating in this mockery of Christianity with this podcaster. This is the podcaster from the Call Her Daddy podcast, a profane podcast. It's a profane podcast, but this is sacrilegious right here. This is the governor of the great state of Michigan participating in sacrilegious mockery of Christianity. And she's feeding this girl from the Profane podcast a Dorito and making it seem like she's on her knees there, making it seem like it's communion. This is sacrilegious. Eat a Dorito. So she's on her knees there. So the governor of Michigan is basically participating in a sacrilegious mockery of Christianity. And over again, you see it. This is, this is the musical Jesus Christ Superstar and the actress Cynthia Evero or whatever her name is. And she's got the crown of thorns on her head, mocking Jesus in a sacrilegious performance, display. But the president of the United States, Donald Trump, is also being accused now of being sacrilegious. And I'm going to be honest with you. This started on Easter weekend. It started with his spiritual advisor, this woman who, quite frankly, he needs to get a new spiritual advisor. I mean, this woman, I believe, is I don't want to be mean, but Paula White is, I have a lot of problem with her theology. It's all about money. It's all about the money. But this started over the Easter weekend with Paula White saying this about Donald Trump in I guess this was the Easter event that they had there at the White House. Take a listen to what Paula White says here. Is this sacrilegious or is it just profane? It's absolutely sacrilegious in my opinion.
But the truth of it is you are here because of God and because of you. And I just wanted to share this thought and pray over President Trump. Jesus taught us so many lessons through his death, burial, and resurrection. He showed us great leadership. Great transformation requires great sacrifice. And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price.
No one has paid the price like you have paid the price. No one. Paula White says no one. She's bringing up Jesus and talking about Jesus. And then she turns to Donald Trump and says, no one. No one? Does that include Jesus? What are you talking about when you say no one has paid the price like you have paid the price? This woman is a lunatic. And this is absolutely sacrilegious. Yes, the price that Jesus paid is greater, much greater than any price that Donald Trump can pay, as you're going to see as we get further into this podcast and the significance of this sacrilege. This is sacrilegious. This is stealing the sacred and then taking it from Jesus and attributing it to Donald Trump is what Paula White is doing. Donald Trump's not doing this. You can't blame Donald Trump for doing this. Now, the only blame that I can levy on Donald Trump for this is that he chooses to surround himself with the likes of Paula White. Maybe he doesn't know better or whatever, but this is her who is supposed to be a theologian. She's supposed to understand this stuff. Donald Trump, who, may be a baby in a Christian faith, if you even believe that he espouses any Christian faith, he doesn't understand this stuff. He doesn't understand the sacred, but she's supposed to understand it. She's supposed to be a theologian. And this is what she's doing. It's absolute sacrilegious.
Salt and pray over President Trump. Jesus taught us so many lessons through his death, burial, and resurrection. He showed us great leadership. Great transformation requires great sacrifice. And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price.
That's a lie.
It almost cost you your life. You were betrayed and arrested and falsely accused.
So what she's doing now is she's relating what happened to Jesus, that Jesus was arrested. Jesus was falsely accused, just like you, Donald Trump. You were arrested and you were falsely accused, just like Jesus. This is sacrilegious. This is stealing from the sacred, and you're taking from what happened to Jesus, and you're making a equivalence to what happened to Donald Trump. What happened to Donald Trump was awful, absolutely awful. The fact that there was attempts on his life, the fact that they tried to put him in jail on all these fraudulent charges, and what happened in New York with the DA making up charges and creating entire legal theory just to throw get convictions on this guy, and all the indictments and everything, and the persecution. That's all terrible. I'm not saying that's not terrible, what happened to Donald Trump and what these people did to Donald Trump, but it is nothing like in the same realm as what happened to Jesus. What happened to Jesus is sacred. What happened to Donald Trump is profane. Even though it's very serious and it was wrong what happened to him, it's not sacred what happened to Donald Trump. It's profane. And what Paula White is doing here is sacrilegious.
And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price. It almost cost you your life. You were betrayed and arrested and falsely accused. It's a familiar pattern that our Lord and Savior showed us. But it didn't end there for him, and it didn't end there for you. God always had a plan. On the third day, he rose, he defeated evil, he conquered death, hell, and the grave. And because he rose, we all know that we can rise. And sir, because of his resurrection, you rose up. Because he was victorious, you were victorious. And I believe that the Lord said to tell you this. Because of his victory, you will be victorious in all you put your hand to.
All right. So a lot of people have problems with that and felt that it was sacrilegious. Maybe, at the end there, she kind of wrapped it up a little bit in her analogy, but there's no reason to make an analogy between what happened to Donald Trump and what happened to Jesus, because what happened to Jesus was sacred. What happened to Donald Trump was awful and terrible. What's the persecution that he's been through, but it's not sacred. And what Paula White is doing here is sacrilegious. Now, same thing happened over the Easter weekend when the mission into Iran to rescue the pilot that had been shot down, and the Iranians were looking for him, and we were looking for him, and we needed to get in there and extract him. And on Easter morning, we get the news that we had successfully went into Iran with the mission to extract the pilot, and they announced that on Easter morning last weekend. And the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who is, I believe Pete Hegseth is a Catholic. I know that he professes to be a Christian. He said this, and I believe it's sacrilegious. I just do. I'm sorry.
When he was finally able to activate his emergency transponder, his first message was simple, and it was powerful. He sent a message: God is good. In that moment of isolation and danger, his faith and fighting spirit shone through. You see, shot down on a Friday, Good Friday, hidden in a cave, a crevice, all of Saturday, and rescued on Sunday.
So he's making a relationship to Jesus again. This is sacrilegious. He has taken what is sacred and he is attributing it to the rescue mission of this pilot. Two independently fantastic events. The rescue of this pilot and the way that and the details around that rescue mission were absolutely fantastic. quite frankly, in every sense of the word, fantastic. And what the American military was able to do and go in and get that pilot. Now, it happened to happen on Easter Sunday, but there's no need to make a relationship with this completely separate event that was absolutely fantastic as well, and a event that that had a larger impact on humanity than just rescuing a pilot that was stranded in Iran. There's no reason to relate the two and bring the two together. That doing so, the death and resurrection of Jesus is something sacred, and bringing that relationship together with this pilot, which was also something that was great that happened. Everyone can celebrate the rescue of this pilot, but it's not the same as Jesus raising from the dead, dying and raising from the dead. But Pete Hegseth talking about the pilot being shot down on Friday and then hiding in this crevice, like the tomb, like the pilot was in this tomb all Saturday, just like Jesus was in the tomb, hiding in this crevice. And then he's reborn again, is what like the pilot was not reborn. Why do you even have to say that? This is sacrilegious.
Faith and fighting spirit shone through. You see, shot down on a Friday, Good Friday, hidden in a cave, a crevice.
Hidden in a cave, in a crevice, in the tomb. This is the relationship that he's making.
All of Saturday, and rescued on Sunday. Flown out of Iran as the sun was rising on Easter Sunday. A pilot reborn, all home and accounted for, a nation rejoicing.
A pilot reborn. The pilot wasn't reborn. Why are you making that relationship? So I have problems with that too. I have problems with the Paula White. Now, none of this Pete Hegseth is supposed to be a professing Christian. This is on him. He chose to say this. You can see he's reading it. It's not just coming off the cuff with this. This is a written speech of him making this sacrilegious statement. And I don't attribute that to Donald Trump, because Pete Hegseth should know better. Paula White, who is the spiritual leader, supposed to be the theologian, she should know better. But when Donald Trump posted this last night, everyone started freaking out, because now this could be attributed directly to Donald Trump, and people were saying this is sacrilegious. Now, I don't think this was sacrilegious at all. I think this is profane. I don't think that there's anything religious at all. But Jesus isn't, Donald Trump isn't taking it out. People say that, now there's nothing that is in the background that has any religious overtones. You can see the woman here, she's got her hands together like she's praying. But what do you got here? You got the Capitol building. You got the United States flag. You got soldiers. Oh, what this is here in the middle, this winged creature. But you got jets. You got the Statue of Liberty, a pagan symbol. You have the Lincoln Memorial, which is a replica of the Greek pantheon. And they say that this is that Donald Trump is Jesus basically in this, but where would you get that? Because he's wearing a robe. He's got the light in his hand and he's healing. Even if he was, professing that he was Jesus, how's this sacrilegious? I mean, the Bible says that we're supposed to take on the image of Jesus. That's what the Bible says. The Bible says, Jesus even tells his disciples that you will heal the sick. You will cast out demons. You will raise the dead in my name, is what he says. So I didn't really think that this was a big deal. But oh my God, people started freaking out about this. And the reason they started freaking out about it mostly is because Donald Trump tweeted this out after having a back and forth with the Pope. We went over this in the last podcast, that the Pope, the entire reason that the American Pope from Chicago was selected as Pope was to be a counterbalance to Donald Trump, that they felt that only an American Pope would be able to confront an American president, and he was selected. Pope Leo was selected for the purpose of challenging Donald Trump. And we talked in the last podcast in many ways over the last year. Hadn't even really been a full year since Pope Leo has been Pope. And now you see that the Pope is really starting to challenge the president of the United States, mostly on the war in Iran is what most of this. But I explained to you that this goes back to Pope refusing to meet with Donald Trump, the Pope refusing to take part in Donald Trump's board of peace, the Pope actually giving audience to Abbas. And I said that the meeting between, in the last podcast, I said the meeting between the Pope and Abbas happened in Gaza in November. I was wrong. I misread the article. The meeting between the Pope and Mahmoud Abbas happened in Rome, in the Vatican. But he's still giving audience to the leader of the Palestinians and basically saying things to take the side of the Palestinians. Same way, much of his rhetoric against Donald Trump, it seems to be siding with the mullahs. So after this confrontation and going back and forth, a war of words, so to speak, between the Pope and the president. The president posted this, and all of the Democrat atheists. I mean, nobody loves the Pope like atheist Democrats. Atheist Democrats will go to the mat defending the Roman Catholic Pope. It's the strangest thing, but they all got on their high horse and clutching the pearls. Oh my God, the president of the United States is having a war of the words with the Pope, and then he's posting pictures of himself as Jesus. Well, if you weren't an atheist, then maybe you would read the Bible and see how we're supposed to take on the image of God, the image of Jesus. That's what Christian means. And Christian means little Christ. So there's nothing sacrilegious about this, in my opinion. That it's profane. That it didn't have it. And then this is what Donald Trump says. He says that I didn't see it as me being Jesus at all. This is what he says now. He was asked about it today. Take a listen.
Did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one. So I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that? It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better, and I do make people better.
So he deleted it, and he says that, well, no, I thought that it was a picture. He didn't make the meme. He sees the meme on Truth Social. He retweets it. Donald Trump didn't make it, and he said, well, I didn't see it as me being as Jesus. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. Whatever. I saw it as me being a doctor. But here you have a president of the United States who has created a religious liberty council. He has said over and over again that he wants to bring religion back into the forefront in American culture, and he wants us to pray again. And he was integral in making abortion or getting rid of Roe versus Wade and things like that. And then people are freaking out, clutching their pearls over this image that has no religious imagery in it at all, except the fact that the person who is Donald Trump is wearing a robe with a crimson sash. And I guess the light in his hand as well would mean that he is, pretending to be Jesus. Now, if someone says that this is sacrilegious and not profane, okay, all right. But these atheist Democrats who are all coming to the defense of the Pope, did you guys say anything about this? Did you guys say anything about the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence being honored at Dodger Stadium, or were we just, blowing things out of proportion? That's the thing. These atheist Democrats, they don't consider anything sacred. They don't even consider the Pope sacred, but they're defending the Pope because the Pope is one of them, quite frankly. Quite frankly, the Pope is one of them. This is a clip from Charlie Kirk, and this was before he was assassinated last year in May, just after Pope Leo was selected the new Pope, the first American Pope. Now, again, he's from Chicago, the city that, now, if you know anything about Chicago, Chicago is a very liberal city, the Windy City and the liberal state of Illinois. It's where Obama and all of Obama's groups, it's where Obama's presidential library is in Chicago, and the Pope is from Chicago. Now, Charlie Kirk was also from Chicago, and this was some comments that he made right after Pope Leo was selected as the Pope. Take a listen.
Hey, everybody, there's a new Pope, and the Pope is from Chicago. What do we actually know about this new Pope? Well, the Pope is from Chicago. I am as well. He served in Peru. By the way, I'm not Catholic, by the way. I'm evangelical, but it still matters who the Pope is. He is a registered Republican and voted in Republican primaries and ran a pro-life group at Villanova University, so that's a good sign. Also has some, let's just say, not so great tweets about having some willingness for open borders. We'll see kind of how he is on that. Also some George Floyd stuff that I'm not too crazy about. But overall, it seems like he's a pro-life warrior. There's a lot yet to learn about this Pope, but I hope that he will be a strong advocate for strong borders and for sovereignty. The first ever American Pope. You're going to wonder, why is it that they picked an American Pope? Could be a coincidence, could be nothing, or is it they want a voice that is also for the opening of American borders while we have President Trump?
So even Charlie Kirk, not even Charlie Kirk was a very sharp individual. That's why he's not with us anymore. But he could see that the reason, this was right after the Pope was elected, and he could see, which many people could see, that the reason that this Pope was elected Pope at this time was to be a Pope that was going to be in opposition of Donald Trump. And again, the Pope is right now, not only the Pope, many of the Pope's supporters, last night on 60 Minutes, they had a entire segment talking to these Catholic bishops. It was very interesting and getting them to give their opinions on the war of words between Donald Trump and the Pope, and the war that Donald Trump is engaged in Iran. And take a listen to this clip. She asked them directly. Take a listen.
Is this a just war?
No.
Talking about the war in Iran. These three bishops being interviewed by 60 Minutes, and she's asking them, is the war in Iran, is it a just war? And this bishop answers, he says, no, it's not. This is not a just war. Listen to what he says.
Catholic teaching, this is not.
Is this a just war?
No. Under Catholic teaching, this is not a just war. Catholic faith teaches us there are certain prerequisites for a just war. You can't go for a variety of different aims. You have to have a focus aim, which is to restore justice and restore peace.
Restore justice and restore peace. So this is not a just war, the conflict with Iran. Well, was it just when the mullahs were killing thousands of Iranians in January who were just protesting for better living conditions? Was that just? Did you guys say anything about the Iranian regime slaughtering thousands of their own citizens back in January? No. And it's very interesting that none of these guys said anything. The Pope didn't say anything about what went on in January and what's been going on. Now, she asked them directly about the mullahs, and listen to what they say here.
For a just war. You can't go for a variety of different aims. You have to have a focus aim, which is to restore justice and restore peace.
Restore justice.
Iran has been the chief exporter of terror. Is there no scenario in which preventing that can be a just war?
It's an abominable regime, and it should be removed.
It's an abominable regime, and it should be removed. Huh? Is this a just war? No, this is not a just war, because the objectives haven't been clearly defined enough for me to call it a just war, but a war needs to be in an effort to restore justice. What do you mean restore justice? They killed thousands of their own citizens just in January. What are you talking about? And then she says, well, the regime is responsible for terrorism. The regime is horrible. And he says, yeah, the regime's horrible and it should be removed. Well, how are you going to remove it without going to war, or at least participating in some military objectives to disarm them, to disrupt their capabilities, to project strength in the region? How are you going to do that without bombing some things, without doing something with this regime if you say they should be removed? It's not serious.
Is there no scenario in which preventing that can be a just war?
It's an abominable regime, and it should be removed. But this is a war of choice that we went to, and I think it's embedded in a wider... It
didn't make any sense at all. This is an abominable regime, and it should be removed, but this is a war of choice. What is this guy talking about? These people are clowns. These people are clowns, and they're speaking out now because it's Trump. They never said anything. They never said anything when it was Obama. And this is something that a lot of people are talking about now. The fact that Pope Leo just a few days ago met with David Axelrod. David Axelrod, who is Jewish, and many people believe when they were saying that, that Obama had a Jewish handler, that David Axelrod was his Jewish handler. But anyway, David Axelrod, who is Jewish, met with Pope Leo just the other day. And now you have articles like this coming out. Pope Leo meets with former Obama advisor David Axelrod. Could he meet with former president soon? So could Pope Leo, now Donald Trump has requested and tried to get a meeting with the current president of the United States, tried to get a meeting with Pope Leo. Pope Leo doesn't want to meet with Donald Trump, but he could meet with Obama, and he's already met with Axelrod. Well, what is this about? This just happened just the other day as this war of words between the Pope and Donald Trump, started to ignite. He's meeting with Axelrod, and this is crazy.
Two of the most iconic Chicagoans in history, Barack Obama and Pope Leo XIV. Some interesting developments today may signal a bridge being built between the two.
A bridge?
Reporter Chris Ty.
A bridge between Pope Leo and Obama, huh? A bridge. The two most influential Chicagoans, the two Chicago guys, the White Sox fans. Pope Leo meeting with Axelrod. That there could be a bridge between these two. Well, that's weird. That's really weird. I'm going to explain to you why that's so weird here in a moment.
Barack Obama and Pope Leo XIV. Some interesting developments today may signal a bridge being built between the two. Our political reporter Chris Ty here with the tea leaves being read over an event at the Vatican today.
Yeah, I want to show you, Marie, who popped up on the Pope's audience list today. Any day that he's meeting with people, their names are posted, as you might imagine. And the name that popped up got a lot of people talking that the two are planning a meeting or maybe something more.
This is the list of those getting a private audience with the Pope today. Beneath the archbishops and Paralympians, the name David Axelrod, one-time senior aide to President Obama, who 6 weeks ago said,
being president, or even being an ex-president, I can kind of meet everybody, so I've met a lot of folks.
Yeah.
The person who I have not yet met and that I'm looking forward to meeting, and I hope I get an opportunity sometime in the future, is the new Pope, who is from Chicago and a White Sox fan.
Axelrod hasn't detailed what they talked about, but a few things to consider.
Listen.
His former boss is just 2 months out from opening his presidential center here on Chicago's South Side. Meantime, the Pope has been as vocal as any of his predecessors about American war.
Reject war, especially a war which many people have said is an unjust war.
Unjust war, reject war. So the criticisms that are fueling the feud between Trump and the Pope are the fact that Trump's waging war. Now, Trump came in saying he wants to be the peace candidate, tried to negotiate a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. He's been trying to negotiate peace. He ended and got the hostages released from Gaza and ended that. He's been working towards peace. But in this instance with Iran, peace wasn't an option. And sometimes peace isn't an option. So he had to do this mission. I believe he had to because of their ballistic missiles. I've already told you that. Maybe you don't believe that. You're not privy to all the intelligence that they're privy to. But anyway, I support the mission because I want the mullahs gone. And even though that they are holding strong right now, it may take a little bit longer for the regime to fall. Anything that we can do to push the regime towards collapse should be done. Just like this priest says, they're a horrible regime. It should be taken out. Anything you can do towards that effort should be done. So I support this. But the issue that is driving the wedge, Trump's been the peace president up until now, that and what he did in Venezuela, okay, that wasn't peace, but there were surgical, especially in Venezuela, it was a surgical mission. It's not a prolonged war, and everything, seems to be headed in the right direction there. What's going on in Iran is a little bit tougher, but the president hasn't shown himself to be a warlord. Not like Obama. Nothing like Obama. This is crazy. So the thing that is driving the wedge between the Chicago Pope and the current president of the United States is that, they're projecting Donald Trump as this total warlord, and the Pope has to speak out for peace. This is an unjust war and peace. But you're going to meet with Obama? This is insane. And I said this just from the beginning when Trump started this action with Iran, and all of these Democrats were coming out. We got to have peace. We got to have peace. Where were you guys? Where were you guys, you peaceniks? All you guys that are saying that we got to have peace, we got to have peace. Where were you, Pope Leo, when Obama was president of the United States? And he was bombing Libya, taking out Gaddafi, arming ISIS in Syria with the Free Syrian Army to take out Assad, bombing in Yemen. Obama had a kill list where he was droning people all over the world, droning families, droning children, droning Americans. He droned a 16-year-old American. Where were these guys? Where was the Pope Leo? Where were these priests talking about unjust war and all this stuff during the Obama administration? And now you're telling me that the Pope that has all this criticism against Donald Trump for the military actions that he's taken is meeting with David Axelrod, and they're talking about plans to meet with Obama and all this stuff. This is crazy. These people are complete hypocrites. Is this sacred or is this profane? This is profane. You remember this? When Newsweek put out this article with the gay halo over Obama's head, the first gay president after the Supreme Court made homosexual marriage legal in the country. Is this profane or is this sacrilegious? These people are clowns. These people are clowns. They have nothing to say when Obama was in office, doing a lot more war, shedding a lot more blood than Trump has. But now the Pope is the peace guy. I'm the man of peace. No, that God doesn't listen to the prayers of those who wage war. Well, did God listen to the prayers of Pope Urban II, who launched the Crusades? Either this guy doesn't know the history of the institution that he represents, or he thinks the rest of us don't. Some of us do. I sure do. Man of peace. Man of peace. Pope Leo embarks on a marathon visit to Africa. So the Pope's going to Africa. He's the man of peace. He's pushing peace all over the world now, meeting with Palestinian leaders, saying Donald Trump shouldn't be bombing the mullahs, taking their side. He's the man of peace. Let's read this article, what it says. Rome, Monday, Pope Leo is setting off for a long Africa trip, the first of his papacy to bear a clear personal stamp. Between April 13th and the 23rd, The Pope will travel to 4 countries, crisscrossing a continent pivotal to the 21st century church he leads. Christian Muslim relations will be high on his agenda. Let me read that again. The Pope is going to be crisscrossing a continent pivotal to the 21st century Trump church that he leads. Christian and Muslims relations will be high on his agenda. High on his agenda is merging the relationship between Christians and Muslims. This is really interesting because many of these, red pill, black pill podcasters and Catholics like Nick Fuentes and everyone, they're pushing everyone towards, Catholicism and saying that Catholics, even Tucker Carlson is saying this, that Christians have more in common with Muslims. We need to be mending our relationship with Muslims at the same time as we need to be separating our relationship from the Jews. And you see this going on with the policy of the Vatican. It's obvious to me that this is the reason that the Vatican did not want to take part in Donald Trump's Board of Peace. This is why the Pope has come out and spoke out for Palestinians and saying, leave the Palestinians alone and don't displace them, meeting with the boss, now saying, Donald Trump's being mean to the mullahs. Don't bomb the mullahs, so you want to mend the relationship, or you don't even talk about men, create a relationship between Christians and Muslims. At the same time, many Catholics are saying that we need to separate the relationship between Christians and Jews. I just find that's very interesting. The Pope, not only this Pope, his predecessor, Francis, also had this objective, was to bring Muslims and Muslim clerics and Muslim leaders into the Vatican and create this relationship with Muslims. It's interesting that he's going to Africa too, because the word Chrislam, look up the word Chrislam, started in Nigeria, and it's this merging of Christianity and Islam, and it's called Chrislam. Look it up. Started in Africa. But this seems like this has been a objective, like I said, not only of this Pope, Pope Leo, but also his predecessor, Pope Francis, to mend or create a relationship between Christians and Muslims. At the same time, many Catholics are saying that we need to separate from the Jewish Christian relationship. The Catholic bishop that we played last week, this guy, this is what he says.
Modern day Jews are not the Jews of the Bible. The Talmudic Judaism didn't exist in that time. The Jews of the time are now Christians. The Gentiles of the time are now Christians. I'm not a Jew or a Gentile. I'm a Christian. That shouldn't be confusing. And people seem to think that the Israel on the geographical map that we see today is the Israel of the Bible. No, the Israel of the Bible wasn't geographical. It was the nation of Israel. It was the people. It was the community, which is now known as the church. So the church is Israel. And so people are getting confused.
The church is Israel. And this was his reaction to Caroline Levitt saying that we're a Judeo-Christian country. And I told you in the last podcast that all the red pillars, black pillars, they got angry at that. Judeo-Christian. Well, if you don't want Judeo-Christian, but you want Chrislam, you want to merge Christianity with Islam. So I did see some posts that I thought were absolutely sacrilegious that pertained to the Pope in response to the feud, the war of words between the president and the Pope. And this is complete sacrilegious right here. It's a typo. He says only of these men, basically these are the only men who have an authority over the church. And it's a picture of the Pope and a picture of Jesus, that you're equating the Pope with Jesus is what I get from this, that this is sacrilegious. They're just stealing from the sacred. And the same way that Paula White did, making a relationship between Donald Trump and Jesus, and that was sacrilegious. I said that this was sacrilegious for Paula White to make a relationship between Trump and Jesus. It was sacrilegious for Pete Hegseth to make a relationship between the rescuing of this pilot and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's sacrilegious. But it's also sacrilegious to equate the Pope with Jesus and say that the Pope is the only one. He in equivalence to Jesus, the Pope in equivalence to Jesus has authority over the church. I thought that this was sacrilegious. This is another, and I saw a bunch of these. This is another post that I saw that is complete sacrilegious. Read it. It says, is there anyone else here besides me? And she's pertaining to these videos, these images, these memes that Donald Trump tweeted. I think this was last year. He tweeted out an image of him as the Pope, and then the one that everyone says was him as Jesus. And she's responding to that. She says, is there anyone else here besides me who has always supported Donald Trump, but is now seriously struggling because enough is enough? The Pope is the vicar of Christ on earth. I don't know what that means, but the Pope is the vicar of Christ on earth, seated on the throne of St. Peter, the throne of St. Peter. Kings have thrones. St. Peter's not a king. Why would St. Peter have a throne? Jesus has a throne because Jesus is a king and a priest. We're getting ready to get into that as we wind down here in a moment. The fact that going back to the book of Hebrews, because this is going to lead us into the book of Hebrews. And I have very much time, so we're going to have to pick it back up in the next podcast. But remember, in the last podcast, we were talking about the book of Hebrews, and the author of the book of Hebrews describes Jesus as a priest after the order of Melchizedek, that Melchizedek was both king and priest. Jesus is king and priest. Very significant that you understand that. But Peter is not a king. Peter doesn't have a throne. This is sacrilege. This is sacrilegious, this post. This post is more sacrilegious than what she's criticizing Donald Trump of. Because she's saying that the Pope, the vicar of Christ, sits on the throne of St. Peter. Peter does not have a throne. And then she finishes here reiterating, the throne of Peter is not to be touched. Peter does not have a throne. Peter is not a king. The Pope and all priests and all ministers of God are supposed to be servants, not kings. Jesus is the king. Jesus is the priest, the high priest, the high priest. So I was thinking about this term, high priest. And the word priest is not a word that Protestants use. It's a word that Catholics use, but it was also a word that the Jews used. And the Jews had the priesthood, which was the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was comprised of Pharisees. It was comprised of Sadducees. These were all the priests. And then even going back to Aaron and the Levitical priesthood, this is what the Jews called their priesthood. It was the Levitical priesthood, and you had the high priest. Well, as this Catholic guy says here, British Catholic priest says here, he says that the church replaced Israel. So if the church replaced Israel, that would mean that the priesthood of the church replaced the priesthood of Israel. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking, so the Pope is like the high priest of Israel. He has the high priest. If you understood what the high priest was at this time, at the time of Jesus, when Jesus is crucified, when Jesus is, you can go back and read in the scriptures, the night that Jesus is arrested, the very first people that he has a trial in front of is the priesthood. And the high priest there, who was Caiaphas. The high priest, it has the same role as the Pope. in the Catholic priesthood, the highest priest in the Catholic priesthood is the Pope. The highest priest in the Jewish priesthood, in the Sanhedrin, is the high priest. The Pope and the high priest are kind of very similar to one another. And this word priest, again, as the church replaced in the replacement theology, as the church replaced the nation of Israel, then the high priest in the church would become what the high priest of Israel. And if you understand that, then what is the Mass? This is my body. This is my blood. This is one of the major issues of contention during the Protestant Reformation, was the issue of transubstantiation. The idea that the actual blood and the actual body of Jesus is present in the Mass. This is one of the major points of contention in the Protestant Reformation, was this, because if the priest is the new priesthood and he's doing the Mass, he's doing a sacrifice. That's a sacrifice that's taking place. When the priest says the words, hoc e corpus meo, or as Bugs Bunny say, hocus pocus meo, that when the priest says those words, that the bread and wine becomes the actual blood and the actual body of Christ being performed there in the Mass by the priest, by the high priest, when the Pope does the Mass. Very deep stuff. Very deep stuff. And as we were saying in the last podcast, that the high priest in the Jewish ceremonies every year at the temple, he was the only one who was supposed to go behind the veil to perform sacrifices. The high priest was the only one who could do that. And that's what the book of Hebrews is talking about. I have about 3 more minutes. That's what the book of Hebrews is talking about when it talks about Jesus as high priest. We read this in the last podcast. This is in the 4th chapter of the book of Hebrews, 14th verse. Jesus is the great high priest. Jesus is a high priest over the Pope. Jesus is a high priest over the Jewish high priest in the Sanhedrin. Jesus is the only high priest that we need. We don't need another high priest, is what the author of Hebrews says. This is what he says. He says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, this is a Jewish author speaking to Jewish Christian readers. This isn't written to Gentiles. Again, the name of this letter is the letter to the Hebrews. This is a letter written to Jewish Christians by a Jew, and he's bringing it all back to the Levitical priesthood, the priesthood of Aaron, the system of sacrifice, and all of that. And he says, therefore, we have a great high priest who ascends into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold firmly to the faith that we profess, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weakness, but we have a high priest who was tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Very, very profound. That Jesus is the high priest that did not sin. All of the Jewish high priests, from Aaron all the way to Caiaphas, to the high priest even after Caiaphas, the current high priest of the Sanhedrin to this day in 2026, they're all sinners. They all had to atone for their own sin before they went behind the veil, because they were all sinners. Pope Leo is a sinner. Pope Leo's a sinner. That's why it's profane to equate the Pope with Jesus, because Jesus is the high priest that did not sin. He was tempted. He was tempted to sin, but he did not sin. Pope Leo's a sinner. Pope Leo is a high priest after the same type of high priest as all the Jewish high priests, because he's a sinner. And what the author of Hebrews is saying is that if you can have a high priest who was is a man who has all the faults of him as a man and who submits to those faults when he is tempted. Or you can have a high priest who's tempted in every way, just as you are. He understands your weaknesses, but he did not sin. He's without sin. Which high priest are you going to take? Which high priest are you going to take? All right, guys, we're going to get back. I wanted to get back into the book of Hebrews more into this podcast, but I had to cover that, especially with the events and everything going on with that post from Trump over the last 24 hours. We will get back into the book of Hebrews in the next podcast on Friday. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you on Friday.